Welcome back to Inspired Inc., the CWS podcast, a show where we promote indie comic creators and become inspired by what they create and their journey of creating it. I'm your host, Brandon Bloxdorf, and today on the show, we have Maddy Morps joining us, creator of Jackson Nightmare and collaborator on comic book anthologies. We talk about battling through social media and what it takes to stand out, developing a comic book community and the benefits of inspiring each other, and why DIY is the way to go so you can grow, and all this and so much more on today's Inspired Inc. But dude, I'm so hyped. Like, what got you involved with like knowing about IC3 and like about like just the show in general? Like, what attracted you to it and what got you to apply for it?
So I'm part of this pretty big at this point. I think we have over like 100, 150 members, part of this comic Discord server that I've been in for, 3-4 years now. I think it started a little bit during the pandemic. So, in there we share resources. It's just a big community. And two of the guys that were in there posted about this. And I'm like, that's in New Haven. That's like an hour and a half for me. Like I live in Queens. So I'm like, okay,
rad.
That's local. I don't have to take a plane. I can potentially just jump on a train and be there. So I was like, wow, that's really cool. Let me look into it. But I missed the application deadline. This was last year's show. And I'm like, let me be one of your table buddies. Come on. So I went with my friend Brian, and we shared the table. We represented, our comic group and like our own personal things. And honestly, I had a freaking blast. That was like probably one of the best shows I've done.
Did we meet last year? Did we? I don't. It was such a wild day.
There was a lot of people.
Yeah,
There's so many people. Might have.
I was like filming and like talking to a bunch of tables too. It was like when I first kind of started joining CWS.
I think I remember someone coming around. Either maybe it was Matt. I don't know. Someone came around and was just like, "Are you enjoying the show? Is everything good? We're gonna have social media, whatever, posts or something
cool.
like that."
Yeah. Maybe I don't know. It was so hectic. And now that I'm hearing that you tabled with somebody, I feel like you seem familiar now. But it was such a wild day. I think we were all very overwhelmed. It's a lot to catch on.
It's always just like cons in general are always just a whirlwind for me. Like personally, it's just like, oh my god. But this one in particular was fun. Like I had like such a blast, and I met so many cool people, and I feel like I was almost kind of exposed to comics and art that I wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, this is like kind of freaking cool. So I was hyped to be there, and it was close to home. Like I said, it was very easy. I got to hang out afterwards. We got some pizza, and then I took the train. I was home by like midnight. It was awesome. I was like, this is so easy. Hell yeah. So then, and then I think all of us, the same group applied this year. So we'll all be there with our own tables this time. And I'm really excited, and just I just like to do the local stuff, the stuff that's close. I don't have to spend that much to get there, and I don't have to go crazy with it. Just the talent was really cool. I met a couple of really cool guys that I've seen at like other shows since then. So it's awesome.
Oh, that's great. I think that's a cool part too, is like when you table somewhere and then you kind of make a couple buddies, and then you realize you're going to be seeing them throughout the year, and you kind of have like a little support and being like, well, at least like if anything goes wrong or if anything happens, I know someone I could reach out to for like, guidance, assistance. Where's the tables at when you walk in the building? Like, you're kind of like not completely lost and alone. And that's such a comforting feeling in general.
For sure. And like even afterwards, you get to hang out and talk with people that you don't necessarily see very often, like some of these folks that, like my friend Brian's from North Carolina, so I obviously don't see him every day, see him at the shows, and it's just always like a fun little, almost like a mini vacation. I always feel like, like this is awesome, this is great.
We don't have birthday parties like we did when we were 5 years old anymore, so cons are kind of that, you know what I mean? You like get all the friends together and you're hyped. And me too, like I run Apollo City Comics, so I'm, half of our team is going to be there as well. And so we're going to have like our table, and there's so many of like, like the person that runs Apollo with me and who edits all of this content and our videos and interviews, Alex Spatz, we've been working together for almost 2 years now, and we've never met in person. So this is going to be the
Really?
con.
Oh, that's so
Yeah,
crazy.
he's in
Oh, hell
Texas in
yeah.
Fort Worth, and now I'm in Virginia now, which is crazy because I used to live in El Paso, Texas, and it wasn't until I moved
Mm,
over here we kind of well, Texas is so big, I guess it makes sense.
yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
yeah, honestly. But that's cool. Are you doing any other cons this year too? Like I just got
Yeah.
accepted into that Brooklyn one.
Oh,
Comic.
you did? Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. I'll be there.
Oh, cool. Rad.
Sweet.
I'm so
Yeah.
hyped. This is my first time
Yeah.
going
Yeah. I
there.
literally just got the email this morning and I was like, yes.
Say-
I went last year. It was pretty interesting, I should say. Mostly because it was outside. So
yeah.
we were like, we kind of got rear-ended with the weather. It was not great.
Oh,
Like it
it
was like we were
rained, didn't it?
outside. It didn't rain. Like it wasn't rain, but it was like really muggy and windy, I
Oh,
guess.
yeah.
So the wind was a problem. And
Yeah.
everyone's books are flying everywhere and we got paperweights down. It was crazy. They're doing it indoors this year, thankfully. But yeah, no, it was a very, very good one. And I like it. Like the ones in the city are always like I'm always trying to do.
Hmm.
Because I'm local. I want to be, part of that community. I grew up here. I've lived here forever. Comics is a tiny small part of my life. Compared to the rest of living in here. Like I've only been doing this for like close to it was the pandemic. So like
Oh,
5 years
yeah. It's been
probably.
a
Like it
while
was
now. Yeah, that's pretty.
starting to actually be serious about like this is what I want to do. Like comics is what I want to do. So it's been like I feel like, you know, the percentage of my life spent doing this has been so small but so impactful that I want to do it all. So I'm doing the Brooklyn Con, and then hopefully in the fall I'll probably try a couple of those like SPX. I've been trying to get a table at forever.
Same. I'm gonna try that this year
So,
too.
so hopefully, hoping SPX is a big one.
I think your art
I
would do
want
really
to do,
good there too. Like you have a really good
yeah, I'd
style that
love
would
to.
fit SBX for sure.
I like that I feel like I kind of appeal to multiple audiences, or at least try to. With it. So SPX would be rad. I would love to do that show. I go every year. It's like always so much fun.
Oh, cool.
Just even attending.
Yeah.
So,
I actually went for my first time last year, and it was like
oh
I
yeah,
didn't realize
nice.
how small like the ballroom was, but it was so like tight knit, and I loved how I got to bounce around and just talk to so many people. My friend like Rick Lopez
Yeah,
was there, and Jeff Lawrence and a few other buddies. So
I
I
know
got
that.
to.
I think I know that name. Rick Lopez sounds familiar.
He does a
We
Cosmic
might have
Cat.
met.
Yeah, cool
Oh
guy.
God, yeah. Oh
Yeah,
my God, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
such a
Okay.
great guy.
He's like Doom Days, I think, on
Yeah, yeah,
Instagram.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
always just know people by their screen names. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Hell yeah. I'm looking forward to meeting him again this year. I think we met last year at IC3.
Yeah, and he'll be there, and he's just
I'm
such a
trying to
good
get a.
dude. All that Cosmic Lion
Oh yeah.
team, so much fun, honestly.
Hell yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely trying to snag one of his books. They look awesome.
Yeah, I think he's
The
getting
new
a new
ones that
one
he just
out
put
this
out.
year.
Yeah.
Pretty hype.
That's it's cool. It's awesome. I love that art. But yeah, no, it was a great time. SPX is always a great time. Definitely want to try and do like Columbus too. Like that's another bigger show that I've heard.
Yeah.
The Columbus Cartoons Crossroads, I think
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah, that's in what, Ohio, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I would love to check that one out too. That one again, I mean, Shelly Bond was there not too long ago, and she was doing like panels and everything, and I was like, just the fact that Shelly's there, I'd love to like talk to her again. She's so sweet. But that's cool. So
For
you've
sure.
only been doing this for since the pandemic, and I love hearing like, it was interesting hearing you say it's just a small percentage of your life, but like I feel like that time span and everything you've kind of done since then, it seems pretty impactful, and you seem to be very like active in the community already, just judging by these 8 minutes in this conversation. Like you know what you're doing. So like what has kept you so passionate about comics? What made you go on this route, and what about the pandemic like really made it click in for you?
I'm trying to think because I started drawing. So I was like the art school major. Like always wanted to do art, definitely. And then I dropped out of art school because I didn't like it. Oh well. So I like I took a break from like drawing, and I did like actually like my other college classes, and I kind of went to that, and then I realized I think during the pandemic, I wasn't working and everyone was home. It was boring. And I'm like, what can I do? I kind of like doing comics. I was like reading them. So let's try it. Let's just do it. So then I just started posting, like trying to post weekly, and just kind of meeting a couple people on Instagram, and it was like a little easier to find people then. And then I joined this group, that I'm in now. Currently, we're called Zomic Book, just product placement.
Yeah.
And we just came out with our third anthology this year. So I joined for the first anthology. And I realized, like, holy crap, there's a lot of people here that do the same thing, and there's a lot of talent. And I think that's kind of what kept me motivated, is just I've met so many insane people in this community that are just beyond incredible artists and would be slept on otherwise, like we're indie people. That's just how it is. There's thousands of us, but just the talent that I've seen and just the people that I've met, the friends that I've made, it's just been so fun that it's like, I could do this forever and always, for all time, because it's great. It's fun. It's great. Everyone's really nice. We have like an amazing community going on. Like, this dude, Brian, built it ground up, and we've just been chilling. Like, we have draw jams every week, and it's very easy to stay motivated when there are other people that are just as about it as you, and watching people be like, I've never had my work published, and they're like in one of our anthologies, and they're really happy that their work is published, or they're really interested in doing one to get their work published. And it's just fun. It's very fun.
Oh, I mean, that's the best components of making comics and doing like what we do, is once you find your community, it seems to all click, and it kind of skyrockets from there. Even with Apollo, like we're organizing stuff for IC3 right now, and it looks like we're releasing like 2 or 3 books, and I think I'm going to have a whole entire fresh selection of things. And some of them are popping up out of nowhere, but you're like, I can't believe how fast this is happening now from when we first started. Like, it would take months to be like, oh, let's get an anthology together and let's do this. And now we're kind of spitting one out in like 3 weeks and whatnot. And we're like, how? This is insane. Like, but it's because of community and the people we know. It keeps us fueled. And, you get, indie people especially, we know we can't turn down any opportunity almost. And I think all of us are in that mindset. And so we're just like, yes, please, let's do it.
For sure. Totally. It's like, I'm hungry for this. I want to do it. And like, I think all of us kind of go in with the expectation is like, a lot of us have real life jobs, and some of us are parents, and some of us are working as teachers or whatever, and full time. And like, I work 9 to 5, 40 hours a week. So it's like, I get home, and this is where the escape goes to. Like, I'll get home and I'll like, we'll play video games together, or there'll be a draw jam happening, or like I'll hop on like voice chat as I'm working on my stuff. Like, it's very like, it kind of reminds me a little bit like college, like having everyone in one spot, and like you have all your friends here, you're in a dorm, you're all in like the common area. And it's great. And that's why meeting everyone in person is just so like life-changing, I guess. Like, this is like, wow, you're real, you're here, we're hanging out.
Yeah, it's also virtual too, especially, your experience starting in the pandemic and making it virtual from the beginning. And then, I mean, podcasting virtual, these draw jams and hangouts virtual. I mean, we do our own Spilled Ink show every Thursday night where we bring on guests and people teach me how to draw. And so like, that's our awesome version of it. It's been pretty fun. Every Thursday it gets better. We got to get you on that show. That'd be super rad, actually.
I'd love to do it. Hell yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I gotta check it out. That sounds fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, leading into IC3, we'll work out something off air and get you on there. That'd be sick. But I mean, that's what it's all about, I think, like that virtual component, and that like, isolated, essence of creating art and drawing and writing and making this on our own. And then we go to a convention and we're like you said, oh, you're a real person. Like, you're tangible. Like, I can't believe we physically get to share this space, because cons are honestly the only way we'd ever see half of these other people. And knowing, taking advantage of that, you kind of have to, because it's like, you're going to miss out on so much life and opportunity and networking. I think I get the biggest opportunities ever when I'm at a convention versus just online networking and whatnot.
Oh my God. And they make it so hard now. Like, okay, so weird aside, because it works out. So like my job, my like full-time job is social media manager. So I run like company social media pages. I am the cringy brand that everyone loves.
Understand that
like,
so much.
Like, I work from the inside. But it's like, it's just, that's just so what happened, the career I fell into, and just realizing like, Jesus freaking Christ, it is so fucking hard to grow from the ground up on social, and they make it harder. So I try to like share the practices like we use for like sales and organic and company things. I try to share it with my friends and, tell them like, this is how we need to operate. But because the way the social media ecosystem works, it's like so impossibly hard to find what you want now.
Yeah.
So it's not like how it even used to be 5-6 years ago. It's crazy how much it's changed.
Like
And I've
almost
found that
quarterly, there's new algorithmic stuff
just,
happening, and it's hard to keep up.
it's so, I get like these newsletters and I'm like, well, can't do that anymore.
All
And it's like,
outdated, yeah.
I just, oh my God, it's so frustrating. And it's getting frustrating. And especially with AI now and all of that crap that's happening on Instagram. And it's just like, no one wants to be there. And I've found so much more success marketing in person than I have online. And I'm just like, this is crazy. We're going back to like literally the 90s before the internet happened. And the only time like you'd be able to just walk into a library and meet a bunch of people who like comics, you know, like this is the same thing. Like, I feel like if they come to the Zine Fest, they want to be at the Zine Fest. They want to be at the comic show. They want to buy comics. They're going to be interested. And then you'll meet other people who also like comics who are also making them. And it's just so much, I feel like I get so much more engagement that way. And I like hate talking to people. Like, so it's just so ironic. Like, I'd much rather do this than like stand in front of somebody. But sometimes that's just what you got to do now, especially like the traction I've gotten. Like, I don't make any website sales. All the sales are at the show.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Honestly, we
crazy.
Even promoting our site on, we just actually I just made a book live right before our show, and we're making a post about it, and I'm like, I know because I'm putting go to ApolloCityComics.com and putting directions towards other things. The algorithm's automatically going to deduct me just for that, or like lessen my views on my stories and everything. And I mean, I think that's why you can't even like, I don't know, getting a degree in like social media management isn't really a thing, because whatever you learn in that degree is going to be just not valid by the time you graduate and try to like go out there and do it. Really, you need a degree on how to stay up with trends. I think that's a study in general.
And just being able to have the attention span to hold the space in your head for like a million different things, like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Facebook's dead. So Blue Sky now and all of these other things, and like Twitter is dead because it's X now and we don't like it and blah blah blah. And it's just like when I learned marketing and communications in college, it was like, you put a hashtag on your tweet and then everyone will say it. And now it's like, you put a hashtag, we'll kill you.
Yes.
Like, it's like, okay, all right, I guess we're not doing that anymore.
Some websites like LinkedIn, heavy on hashtags. Instagram, none. Blue Sky, it could kind of work. It's a whole thing. And I like what you're saying about AI. What I really don't like about that right now is that a lot of us creators are very anti-AI. Overall from the start, especially with the art generation and everything it kind of offers. And so now that they're like, you need to start using your AI to like trend and be part of this. And I'm like, no, I'm so against it. I don't want to be part of that. Like, I don't want to contribute.
Right. Like, I don't, and it's the same thing. Like, it's just in world, like every company and every business is just like AI, and everyone wants to show it. They have commercials now. And it's like, I'm so sick of this. Like, it happened, it's been like what, a year of maybe like the mainstream, and it's like already exhausting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I know a lot of people I know are leaving Instagram and just like, screw it, I don't care. And I'm like, well, I'm glad I have you connected elsewhere, like on Discord, for example. Because a lot of these communities that I'm in are on Discord. And I'm glad we're connected because we'll just see each other in person and we'll hang out here, because social media just isn't, it's just not social anymore. It's not meant for that. It's meant for like rotting your brain.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you're not making reels and stuff like that, you're really just like not going to get a lot of attention, a lot of traction. It's not going to, getting, thousands of likes. I don't even know how to approach that unless we're doing, just weird, I don't know, stuff that you just don't want to do at all. It doesn't appeal to your brand. It doesn't appeal to your message, but you're just doing it just so you could get some traction. It's a weird double-edged sword.
Fan art clause. You just got to do a lot of fan art, and then you'll get a lot of likes.
Yeah,
and it's honestly. Like it's not like, I love doing that. Like, that's like a great little warm up drawings and just everything, and like fan art is great. But that's where like the original creators, they don't want to do that. They want to show, like, if you have a page on Instagram that's dedicated to your comic, you don't want to be drawing like fan art of other comics on there. You can, but it ruins the flow. It's just tough. It's tough out there. And then you get like the overshadowing, because you have comic artists who started in like 2009 who are huge already and have a huge audience. So the algorithm pushes them, and then it's just
Endless
it's a
cycle.
game.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a really bad game of chess where you're just like, I thought I was winning, and now it turns out like I'm nowhere on the
No,
board. Like,
nobody does. Nobody wins.
and I mean, so aside from social media, like, how do you and when you're at
Yeah.
cons, what do you do when you table to really attract people and gain an audience? Like, what are some of your methods that you've tried that you feel have made you successful tabling?
That's a great question. I try to be, I guess, like not there for sales. If that makes sense. Like, I don't try to be a salesperson
Hmm.
because, like, for me, like personally for me, I know a lot of people like can actually make a livelihood doing this, but I'm like, I have a job. This is for me. It's a pure hobby, and I love doing this, and I have fun. And when I'm at cons, I'm like sipping on an energy drink, and I'm going. I'm having a great time, and I just want to have fun with everyone. So like, I don't care if you're here to buy a book or just hang out.
Hmm.
So I think that's kind of like an approach I like to take. Is I just like to be like, hi, other person. I am also other person. Communicate, like, what do you like? And, I'll ask them questions. And it's just like, I don't want to make it all about me, even though, like, I kind of should, because it's like, I'm at the table, I'm the one selling myself. But I think just kind of interacting with people, because also a lot of people come up to your table and are just kind of just like, oh, hi. Yeah, and like quietly look through your stuff. I just kind of just start telling them. Like, they'll pick up a book and I'll be like, oh, yeah, so I made that while I was drunk, and I'll just like start telling them the backstory for it. And they either love it or they get weirded out and walk away. So
That's
it's
how you find your
it's a
audience.
crapshoot.
Filter right
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah. And if they walk away, it's like, all right, don't take it personally, and um, just be weird and memorable, I guess. Because I'd much rather have people be like, did we meet at that show? Than like have someone be like, I don't know who you are. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care if you remember my name or anything, but if I'm like impactful in some way, because you can't be like that on the internet. So it's fun to
Yeah.
sort of like let it out.
And so how do you think you found success on social media? Like, doing what you do in your day job, like what are you implementing that you found is successful to at least like rank or get some attention or, gather a following and an audience on social media?
Honestly, fan art. Um,
It works.
so like for a while, I did like this kind of preceded the comics part of my pandemic art. I tried to draw all the Pokemon from the Pokédex, like
Cool.
starting with like Bulbasaur and like going as far as I could. And I didn't get very far. I got up to, I mean, I got far, but not like, because there's like
Oh, there's like
1,000 of them.
millions now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got up to the third gen,
Oh, wow.
which was
Okay.
my favorite, like most nostalgic. And then from there, the nostalgia started tripling down. I'm like, I don't really care about these Pokemon. Like I like the ones that I did. So I was doing that, and that kind of brought in a bigger audience too, like, or more of a, not a big audience, but like more people, because it's like Pokemon.
Yeah.
Everyone's playing the games were new, and I would just kind of like pay attention to the hot moments of like, oh, there's a meme going around with Pokemon. I'm gonna draw it. I'm gonna make a comic about the game, or I'm gonna do like, I made like a Pokemon Snap comic or something like
Oh,
that when
cool.
that game came out. So it's like, I'm gonna try and use my art to sort of like push myself into the zeitgeist, and like do like redraw memes and fan art and stuff like that. That helped. Just commenting, like making the connections there, or trying to at least, which is kind of how I found like my Discord community, and how I found all of these was just commenting, being like, I'm interested, hey, like DMing people, because you don't have to be shy. There's
Yeah.
like a barrier, so you don't have to worry about embarrassing yourself or whatever. Just message people. So I feel like that's kind of, it just naturally happens. Like you'll flow right into this little pond that you're meant to be in.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Honestly, like just kind of finding your niche, but like doing your own thing that you enjoy at the same time, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah, and recognizing people's art too, like being like, didn't I see this in this book, or do you like that? Like, this style reminds me of this artist. Like, having those comparisons and sort of drawing, those conclusions of if these are people that you want to interact with or not. Um, but yeah, met all kinds.
That's rad. I mean, yeah, I think that's where people struggle with the most is just like finding the balance of their art and enough art to get attention. And I think that's why I mean, we draw fan art mostly on Spilled Ink because we're like, all right, what do you guys want to draw tonight? And it's more of just like a character to spit out and everything.
Right.
But
Right.
it's like, that's
Yeah.
like good for practice. But I love being able to now branch out, and we're going to try doing comics this year and just making comics, like single page comics, during our 2-hour stream and
Just real
everything.
quick. Yeah.
And I'm like
Hell yeah.
curious how that's going to shift our algorithm at the same time, because it could either lean one way where we're losing
Right.
people because it's not like, oh, we're not drawing Batman or Spider-Man tonight. Instead, we're going to be doing this. But then we could get like the craft people more integrated. And then you get the community being like, oh, if they're working on a page, we're all going to be working on a page. So it's like finding that community but making those shifts as you're doing that. It's a weird balance too, because you want to keep everyone around and your algorithm or whatever
Right.
to keep you in sync. But you're like, I'm battling.
You gotta have those
everything.
buzzwords.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
you gotta throw the buzzwords in there. Like, people are Googling Spider-Man, so they'll find you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tough, but I think once you like find the people, like even if it's like 10, 15 people, like that'll snowball and that'll grow. And then they want to see your stuff because you're their friend, and they like you. And that's kind of what it all comes down to, is like, people have the artists that they idolize and that they want to be like and do things with, or do things like and kind of emulate. But then there's like your real community who's actually gives a shit about what you do, because as much as we love to do it, like, don't meet your heroes. They're not going to always be what you think.
Have you had any experiences like that where some things like just didn't work out, where you're trying to introduce your art to someone that you admired or looked up to in that sense too?
Not really, actually. If I were to meet like an artist that like I've liked or I've followed for a while, I just kind of just go up straight up and say it. I'm just like, hey, I followed your stuff for a while. It's really great. Like I'm very much like I don't want to be like that guy who's just like, please look at my comic. Oh my God. Like, tell me what you think, please. Like, I don't want to make them feel uncomfortable or on the spot. So I just kind of talk about anything really other than that. But I've got a couple like of like the bigger web comic people, and they're all really great. And like some of the indie comic folks, like the published Fantagraphics folks that I've met, like just doing cons and going to those tables, it's just they're really nice, and they're all there just to chill and have a good time.
That's awesome.
So I try to not make it all about work,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But talking shop is just fun to do, and then you learn what materials people use, and you build on your own style and your own stuff like that. But yeah, I think like the best time I've had like at SPX is like with those people, with like people who are like bigger and have been doing this for like 10, 15 years. That's a great place for that.
And so do you feel like you fall more in that, like, I guess like upper indie spectrum of comics, like not necessarily mainstream, like the big two or stuff like that, but it sounds like you're more Fantagraphics and, maybe even drawing quarterly and stuff like that. That's where you really found like your love for comics?
I think so. Yeah. Like I was a newspaper comic kid. Like I loved the Sunday funnies, like growing up, that was my thing. I tried to get into like the classic, Marvel DC stuff. My dad had a lot of Marvel comics, like from the 70s growing up. So I was like, I don't really like the superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of started reading a lot of just like Archie. I read a lot of Mad, just kind of like the fun stuff. I guess you could call it that.
Kind of probably where you get your cartoony style from too.
Yeah. I mean? Yeah. I think I'm more drawn to sort of like what you'd see on like Cartoon Network or like Nickelodeon or whatever, 90s growing up, that kind of cartoon style. But I think also being part of the community has like opened me up to more like indie creators that I wouldn't have found out otherwise. Like Charles Burns, for example, I only learned who he was like a year or two ago, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of a good name to know and a good person to study.
Yeah.
And I think one of the first people that I realized like, oh wow, this is good shit is Simon Hanselman. Like those comics.
What did he do?
They do like the Meg Mog and Owl, Werewolf Jones.
Oh, okay.
Like stoner comics, basically.
Yeah.
Definitely. Did they come out with a book recently? I feel like they're published by Fantagraphics, so there's a lot of stuff. So that's kind of where I've like, I guess the internet has shown me those comics, and then obviously like just going from there and spitballing out. Someone will mention a name or share a book in the server and I'll be like, all right, who did that? I need to follow this person or get to know their art.
I love
Um,
that because that's like a
yeah,
whole section of comics that, like, I grew up with like Marvel and DC because that's what was accessible to
right.
me. But like, and all these like fanographic artists, Dave Baker and Mary Tyler Moorhawk and stuff like that. Like, I only like
Mhm.
discovered a lot of that within the last like probably like 4 or 5 years, and that's when I
Yeah.
realized I was like, this is like real like comic gold, and it kind of made me, over the years as I've gone integrated with the community and indie comics. It's when I realized like indie comics is like just the best place for comics. I feel like anyone who's looking for independent creators
Mhm.
really just loves the craft of comics because you have to like kind of search and find this niche. It's not nearly
Yeah,
as like,
for sure.
when you Google comic book creators, I mean, you just get that row of white dudes of Frank Miller and Will Eisner and Scott
Yeah.
Snyder and stuff like that, and you
All
don't
those
like,
people.
you lose all the diversity when you just go those routes. I feel even with brands like Distillery and Ghost Machine, like it's just like a bunch of like the people that were dominating the comic book realms in general. Now they're just doing their own thing and dominating those realms, but all these other creators like the independents are the ones that are just
Mhm.
doing it for passion and love. And like you're saying, you just do
Exactly.
this to do it. You're not doing this to try to
Yeah.
make
It's
money
just
and make it
fun.
big. Yeah, and that's
And it
passion
works,
right there.
you know? It shows. It shows like through people's art. I think that's kind of what draws me to like the indie scene more is like I've known people who have like interned at Marvel and stuff, and it's just like the rigid structure of everything, and there's guidelines, and you have to draw this a certain way and write this a certain way and follow that branding basically
Yeah.
because it's Marvel and DC. Like, what are you gonna do? They're the kings of the industry. But it's just so fun to see like what people do independently with their own stories, and you get a lot, like you said, a lot more diversity, a lot more voices can be heard. And I think that's kind of creeping up into the mainstream a little bit, which is great to see.
Mhm.
But I still love like the indie, that passion. You can't beat it
Yeah. And I would love to
with
see like
anything.
this indie boom I feel like we've had since COVID, like slowly take over the market more and more. Like I would love to
It
see
would be
like,
so cool.
Marvel DC take up like 80% of comic sales, but to see that drip until, 76, 63, like, and just to see that kind of deteriorate. Not, I mean, I am a
Mhm.
fan of like Marvel DC books. I do like still reading some of the stuff I grew up with, but it's like, I mean, I would love to see the spectrum of comics and the expectation of comics to change. Cause I feel like
Oh
if,
yeah,
when you go with those two straight out of the gate, you look at your art and then you start comparing yourself more than artists who start off with what you're interested in. Like the fanographic and all these independent crews, I feel like creators like you have so much more freedom in your art, so much more expression, so much more. It feels like you're taking more risks. And a lot of us
yeah,
creators who grew up with Marvel DC, we feel like, oh, I'm comparing myself to Jim Lee and Tony Daniels and Jason Fabok and all these other bigger creators. When it's like, no, like they put an impression on art and comics that one isn't completely feasible for the majority of creators, and it kind of like almost feels discouraging because it's a comparison thing. But when you look at
yeah,
fanographics and all the uniqueness of art, you're like, oh, I might be able to do this. Like it does seem like
right.
my style is an actual style.
And I think that's also what like web comics has helped doing because it's like you have like the big web comic people like Shed Comics who do like really quick and like simple, easy character designs, and it's not like this overcomplicated superhero with an insane costume or anything. And like you realize, oh, honestly, like you can make a blob with eyes talk, and that'll be funny to people if you make it with love, or if you make it like with passion and creativity. Which is I think like a huge thing that web comics changed, and I think has brought a lot of people into that space. It's just like, oh, I make really sketchy ass comics and they're still good because it doesn't have to be as polished as, the big ones are. And that's kind of what I like about self publishing too, because like you get to choose. You get to choose everything and
Yeah.
you're in charge and you don't have to worry about working with a publisher and yeah, we have a group and theoretically there is like a hierarchy. Like we have the editors and then we have contributors and stuff like that. But it's not like there's no style guide. There's no you have to follow my rules or like
Oh
there's
yeah.
no hard deadlines. Like there are deadlines, but not like if someone can't make the deadline, it's not like you're gonna
Pretty
stop the whole
flexible.
project sort of thing. It's just having the control over your art and your work and being like the sole owner of it is just fulfilling, like more fulfilling than I feel like if I were to get a full-time comic artist job at Marvel, I'd feel like overworked and bored with it quicker, I think.
Yeah, I think the burnout might approach a lot faster
Mm.
at that
Oh God,
point, you
yeah.
know? And I
God,
totally
I'm so
get that
tired.
because even running Apollo and, you know, I'm technically like editor in chief at running this publication line. When it comes to deadlines and when it comes to like producing books, it's like there things happen, like life happens, you know? And so when you fumble, and at least if you have a good supportive community, when those things happen, you're just like, okay, like let's adjust this, let's work this for you, and it's a lot more caring and I guess like one-on-one personal. It doesn't feel like a business. It feels like, oh well, I'm just here to support you as a creator, so whatever you need we can take care of. And it's
Right,
also,
right.
I'm now learning, like, you know, I guess with the growth of the publication aspect of like sometimes you do need to make hard calls and move people off books or switch things over, but it takes such a
Sure.
long time to get to that point that you're like, oh, okay, like now is like the time we draw the line, but it's because we've given you a year of
Mhm.
chances of trying to produce a book at that point, you know?
Right, right,
Um, and it's
right,
fun because it's like, yeah, there's deadlines, like you said, but flexibility is key because it's like kind of just treating your artists like humans at that point, you know?
right. And we all know that everyone has a life. You know, I'm not gonna yell at some guy on the internet for not meeting a deadline when I know he's got, you know, kids at home or, you know, family issues or something, you know, that is taking up time, you know,
Mhm.
in your life. Because like we love comics, we love it to be their whole lives, but that's not true for some people. You know, a lot
Yeah.
of people just do this just to do it. And it's good to give those folks opportunity. And just to see like what otherwise wouldn't be shown,
So
and you
how do
wouldn't
you
be able to
keep
read them.
yourself on like a deadline and keep yourself, oh, this is, I'm going to make sure I have this done, this project wrapped up before I move on to the next one? Like, what's your mental like when you're trying to complete projects?
Just get it done as quickly as humanly possible. That's kind of just been my thing. Like I work on such like that. Like until there's pressure to do something, I ain't gonna do it. Like until like if we're doing a group project, for example, like one of the anthologies, I'll have the deadline, you know, on my calendar and it's in my head and I have it written down. But I'm not gonna work on it until the week before because that's the only way it's gonna get done. And you know, I've done
Yeah.
that with my own like zines and stuff. Like I'll have an idea and I'll need to like buy the paper, get the pens, get it ready, draw it, pencil it, ink it, color it, do it all in like sometimes it takes, you know, longer, but like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I'll just do it because I know that's when the fire's burning the brightest. So I just want to get in there and do it. So I'm very bad with deadlines usually, but and I'm not saying it's a healthy way to work,
In a good way, you know
but
what I mean?
I'm
Like, yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, the last book that I did, like for my own personal, it was like a Halloween story, and I think I did it in like 2 to 3 weeks or something like that, like from start to finish, like writing the script, thumbnails, all of that, because I'm like, yeah, let's go, let's get this done. We got this done. Halloween's in like a couple weeks. I want to be able to post this and share it and get it printed and all that stuff. And I think that I had so much I wanted to do with it that it just motivated me to finish. Like I was staying up till like 3 in the morning doing line work for no reason. Like I didn't have to do that, but you know, I was. And I was like, oh shit, I got work tomorrow. It's like 2 in the morning. I got to stop doing this, but I got to finish this page. And I was like, trying to tell myself, like, you only have to do a page a day. You don't have to go crazy with it. You have enough time to do a page a day. And I'd end up doing like two
Yeah. Yeah.
because I'm like, you can't stop. And I think that's kind of like the artist curse is like, some people can take their time with it, but that's why I've never been a good painter because I'm like, I can't wait for the shit to dry. I need to keep going. I need to finish the thing. I need to put the layers on. You know, it just works out like that.
Sometimes like
I
that
don't know what
anxiety
you
just
call it.
fuels us, and like that panic, it just works.
Right,
You know what I mean? Like it's the best
right.
motivator somehow.
It's like, I can put this off until 3 days before I have to send it to the guy. It's all right. It's fine. So that's kind of how I roll.
And so you do like basically like a lot of zines and just self-publishing at that point. Do you like experiment with like papers, or do you have a printer at home? How do you go about with some of your books?
So yeah, I have a printer, like a shitty little Canon printer that I bought many years ago. I'm still kicking it. So, you know, pray.
Yeah.
So I basically like, I'll have to like make that decision, I guess, you know, like, hey, is this too big of a project to print at home? Like, am I going to go through, you know, it's an inkjet printer, you know, I'm going to go through a whole pack of ink for this one run of this book, you know, like I can only print like 7 copies at that point. And at that point I'll be like, all right, maybe I'll take this to like Staples or do it that way, but I'll still assemble it myself. Like I'll just print out the sheets. I'll still come home. I'll still cut it. I'll still do it. And that's purely because I think I get a bigger dopamine hit, like doing it with my own hands, you know?
It's
But I've also had some books that
it's
I've sent
artistic
off,
in that sense. You know what I mean? You're
Yeah,
still putting the
right.
project together quite literally.
Right. And I think like when you send it off to printer, like I try to save it for like the bigger projects, like more page count, you know, stuff that like if it has to be perfect bound, obviously. Definitely want to send that off. But I also like being able to print it and see it as it's coming out. You know, and I'm like, that looks weird. Like that doesn't look too great. Let me fix it. And then I can fix it in like the file. I can Photoshop it in the file or do it on my iPad or whatever, and then reprint it and see if that works. So I very much prefer doing it at home, but paper types are also hard to sort of work with when you're at home. Like I just used like a heavier weight copy paper basically. Which also took a little trial and error because I didn't really know which weight I wanted to go with. Like, should I go with 32, 28? So I bought like a couple different like small computer paper packs. So I have a shit ton of paper that's just sitting here, not used because I used the other kind.
Makes sense.
But yeah,
a lot of scrap paper, a lot of like, quick draws on those.
A lot of scrap paper. Oh my God. Yeah. I use it for like my lists and stuff now. I have like 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper just with like a grocery list on it. Because I'm like, I have all this paper. But it's just
scroll at the
it's
grocery
just so much
store.
more
That's
fulfilling.
amazing.
Literally just
Yes.
I just fulfilling, you know, it's good. It's doing it with your hands. You have it. You did something. And that's basically what I do. I have like colored papers, like different colors for the covers and stuff like that. So yeah, it's nice. I have done a couple of like things where I've like went to like UPS store or whatever, Staples, and like used the printers and it came out like shit and I paid for it. I'm like, oh, you know, I feel like I feel like if it comes out like shit, but all I'm doing is buying the ink, I feel like
it's at home. It's like yours. You can kind of mess with it. And I think even the audience realizes that too when they see it, like, oh, you did this all like at home. And that's what I love about zines in that sense. When I've printed mine, I'm just like, hey, you know what? Like, I know it's not like my CWS like issues of my books, but it's like, this is like a good freebie. I'm not going to feel bad if I just hand this out promotionally or just to get my name out there. I did a bunch. I wonder if I have one near me. I did. Oh, here it is. Like this Teenage Babylon Ashcan. It's like my first series that I'm putting out.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is all just, zine printer paper, like, and it came out great. Perfect. It's awesome. And if I, give these away for free, I think I printed 200 for like $80 or something, or 150 for, and it's just like, oh, this is like how I get my name out there though. And then I could print it like, I print the next run at CWS and I actually sell that one. So these people get nicer quality. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Those I should probably like not give away. I gave away so many in my punk anthology, which is like 60 pages and it's printed nice. And I'm like, I can't give that book away. I need to start selling that one. There's a reason why I priced it at $15 because it cost me. So there's a balance
that's
there.
Another thing too, is like pricing your books. And like, I'm always just like, I just want people to be able to afford this. Like I said, like it's not my livelihood. Whereas I understand that it is others and they have to price accordingly. But for me personally, I'm like, shit, I printed this in like an hour. Like, you want it for $2? Go take it. I'm like, it doesn't feel like I'm losing anything. But yeah, everything I get professionally printed, like all the anthologies and everything, I'm like, yeah, sorry, it's $30,
Yeah.
Non-negotiable. Like this was like $25 to print. Like I can't really do any better than that. But yeah, it's a nice little, I guess, freeing, accessible way to do it. DIY is just, I don't know, always rolled like that, just like that a lot better.
Apollo started with such a punk ethos, and then like the way Max Flowers, one of our main designers, works on everything. We do our own screen printing, we make our own t-shirts, like stickers, all this type of stuff. So like incorporating the comics and the zines into that, it was just like a no-brainer. And it's so beneficial, and it gives you such a variety of stuff, and it allows you to test things out. It allows you to do like kind of like an A/B testing, even with people, like, investing into one book and just printing a bunch of bunch of copies. And then you realize like no one's really going for this one, but everyone's going for this one. It's like, okay, well, that's the last run of that one. At least I didn't invest everything I have into that. But do you do any like crowdfunding, Kickstarters and stuff like that too?
Yeah. Actually, with the last anthology we did for Zomic Books, so issue 3, we did it on Crowdfunder. which we saw insane success with, actually. Like, we reached the goal, we passed the goal, we were able to sort of take some of the money, and then get like a little gift for all the contributors. We did bottle openers, which
cool.
we will have at IC3 if someone
Sick.
wants to buy some. Yeah, so we had one of our artists design for the bottle openers, and they're really good. I wish I had one like on hand. They're like all in my convention bucket. But they're like metal, they're really good quality, and we sent it to everyone who created a comic for the book. And we were able to blow past the goal and get it printed and everything. And the crowdfunding process we only did for like a month, I think, like 30 days. But you know, the promotion and everything was really fun to do. We have our own in-house superhero. But cool. We made live action for the book and the promotion and the crowdfunder, and the whole thing was like in his voice, and
that's sick.
Half the money was for his alimony payments, you know. So
there you go.
You know, it all worked out, and it's fun to have sort of like that like little universe and like identity for us. But doing the crowdfunding was awesome. I had fun. I mean, it was stressful to be like, are we going to reach our goal? Are we not going to reach our goal? But then, you know, we did, and we reached it, I think, with like 2 weeks to spare too, which was
cool,
awesome.
And do you think crowdfunder was did you guys choose that platform for a specific reason, or like, have you guys tried out Kickstarter previously or other platforms at that point too?
I think we did like Indiegogo for another one. And that one we didn't see, like, that was years ago, I think, at this point. And I don't think we had the group that we had. We didn't have like the people that were as passionate about it and were sharing it. And, you know, this anthology was, I think, like a little under 200 pages. It ended up being, it's thick. It's very thick. Yeah. So, you know, this one we were like, this is the best thing we've ever made. We have the best group of people for it. So I think we wanted to go for a Kickstarter type, like bigger crowdfunding thing. And I've seen like a bunch of people just organically using crowdfunder for comics.
Oh, cool.
And I'm like, okay, you know, they seem a little smaller, but easily discoverable. Like, you can go on there and like sort everything by comic projects. So I saw a bunch of things like being advertised on there. I'm like, why don't we try this out? I think there was another group that did an anthology on there that used crowdfunder and was successful. So I'm like, we should definitely try it. We should try it. And then we did. And yeah, and them being a smaller platform, like, their official pages shared our stuff and we're helping promote. So it's like something you wouldn't normally get on like Kickstarter or any of the bigger backer, you know, things, because there's so much on there already.
Oh, wow.
Crowdfunder was great. I really enjoyed setting it up. Was easy. You know, a couple of hiccups because we just didn't know what we were doing, but I think next time if we were to use it, it's seamless. It's great. And yeah, like I said, easy to find. There's like tons of comic projects on there.
That's sick. I need to invest more time into studying some of the other like crowdfunding platforms. I've really just used Kickstarter for Apollo so far. Really just because that's what, you know, the masses kind of use, and, you know, you kind of get recommended.
It's like the standard or whatever.
Yeah. And it's like, I've noticed like how much we get buried sometimes in indie comics, especially in the last, I guess, like year or so with the new management that's going on with Kickstarter. You know, we had some crazy good books the first year we launched. Like the Punk anthology went over $5,000 and the goal was 1,000. And, you know, Cybersync, our second anthology, got really close to 5. It was like almost at 5,000. And again, our goal was like 1,000 too. But then our third one, we barely hit. That's when the management shifted over there. And then we noticed we only hit like kind of 2K. And we were just like, oh, dang, this like got us right above our goal for sure. Yeah. But like, it was such and we're seeing numbers decrease, but we were also seeing bigger creators like Daniel Warren Johnson and like, you know, Skybound and all these people doing crowdfunding at that same time. And we're thinking like, oh, are we getting buried behind some of these bigger names and other, you know, comic projects happening at the same time? So crowdfunder is something definitely I want to look into, and especially in that aspect, you know, if you're finding more success there, that's amazing. Do you mind if I ask how much you guys were raising on these campaigns too?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it was, I forgot what our exact goal. I think it was 2,000 or a little bit. Actually, I can check. Let's see. 2,000. Yeah. So we did 2,200 was their goal. And we ended up getting 2,691. So
sick.
122% of the goal.
Nice.
Which was freaking awesome. And like I said, we were able to sort of put that money back into the group.
Hmm.
And then anything extra, we go and fund other projects.
Yeah.
Because all of the other projects we do are sort of internal. Like we'll order as many copies as people want. Like contributors will pay
Yeah.
for their contributor copies and be like, all right, they're $4 a copy. How many do you want? We'll print it in volume in that way. But this was like we wanted to print at least 100, I think, just flat.
Have on hand. Yeah.
Yeah, to just have. So, and we will also have that. And we did print it with Comix Wellspring as well.
Oh, rad. Hell yeah.
So,
Cool. Definitely. We'll
yeah,
definitely feature that too.
more product placement. Yeah, for sure. I can send you whatever you guys need for it, but we'll be there.
Cool. Dude, that's so exciting. Honestly, like
Oh yeah.
that's what's cool about kind of like knowing who to go with and figuring out things too, because as you network you kind of find the resources, and I think that's how I came
Yeah.
basically across CWS, and it's kind of how I landed this gig in general, was just like being around the right people at the
Sweet.
right time and just being like, how do you even make comics? Like, who do you go to? And having like an accessible printer where you could like call and ask people or message them on social media and you'll get answers. I was like, this is a great
Yeah.
thing that like now we're gonna be doing cool stuff. Like we just created blue line paper. So now we're giving
Cool.
really affordable blue line paper. It's like 24 pages per pack for $25. And
That's awesome.
yeah, we just announced it or we haven't announced it yet, but it just went live yesterday. But we're making the announcements over the next week. So we're trying to like just help creators make stuff and finding those communities like continuously. It's where we all find success. And I think that's like the basis of your entire, artistic existence, it seems like, because of your community.
Oh, for sure.
It encouraged you to create art. It continued to make comics in general, and it's got you more involved with anything. What are you doing like solo wise, like on any of your books? Like, do you want to talk about some of your projects that you're doing besides the anthologies?
Yeah. Hopefully we'll have more of like my own stuff this year. I've tried to I'm like, okay, this is going to be the year that I actually sit and do a full size book.
Cool.
So I've only done like little zines here and there personally, and then last year I did a Halloween book that was like 23-ish pages.
Oh, rad.
And that was like all DIY stuff. But this I want to do like an actual like print run of a book, and I haven't decided like what I want to print with yet. Like at first I was like, maybe I'll try like the risograph printing that everyone is doing these days.
Yeah.
But it's complicated, and I don't know if I have the brain capacity to learn, things that are new and scary, for like a book that like I want to produce.
Yeah. I want to test something
so
with it first.
Right. And I'm trying to go to like 40 to 60 pages. Like I really want to get like a meaty book, because I've had this story, in my head for a while, and I want to make a longer one, and people seem to like the characters. So it's hopefully will come out by this like October is my deadline for myself, so I can have it for like the fall circuit, but hopefully soon. And I have like a script going for that. That's also a book that I'm going to try and do traditionally, like ink it traditionally, instead of doing like a digital, because like a lot of the stuff I've done is just digital for ease of access and speed. But I have this nice shiny Bristol pad that I got over the holidays, and I'm like, what? Let's try it. Let's try it. Let's bring out the inks. Let's do it. So I really want to make like a traditional comic book, and hopefully that will come out soon. And other than that, I don't really have anything like ongoing or anything like that. But just trying to also like I want to do like my regulars. Like I used to have a comic strip that I would post weekly and stuff like that, but they've been kind of like we're kind of been like unmotivating, I guess, to work on it. Like I needed like a break, but I think I'm like I kind of know what I want. Like I was going between like, should I make this like an auto-bio thing? Should I make this like a story? Like should these characters have a story? But I think it's more just gonna just be like straight up Looney Tunes, like slapstick stuff.
That's great.
Where it's just freedom, I guess. I want to have fun with it. It's especially if it's a comic strip, like a posted online or whatever. So hopefully that as well.
You kind of have to have that mixture in there. Like I was working on these two series, Fake Your Death and Teenage Babylon. And I mean, they start to get like really depressing when you're writing and working on them sometimes, like where you have to go for like character motivation and like develop the story. And I
Yeah,
was like, I need a fun
right.
comic where I could just be bombastic and cartoony. And so I started, actually, we're going to be releasing it at IC3, the first like chapter of it,
Oh, hell yeah.
and a cool, foil poster. But I started working on the High Adventures of Weed Wizard and Bong Boy. And that,
I would love that.
I will send you a picture of the poster. I'm super hyped about it.
Yeah,
But
I
like
want to see that. That's
having
awesome.
this like stoner book just like gave me so much like life again. And seeing
Yeah,
Evan's work behind it, I'm just like, oh, I'm excited to write. I don't have to like just listen to MCR and be depressed for a bit and like get in the mode or anything. And now I'm just like, oh, I could just like enjoy writing and just sit down and be like, what's the stupidest idea I could have? Especially because like Weed Wizard turns everything into weed, and then Bong Boy is like a literal bong who skateboards, and it's just like ridiculous. And so being able to have a project you're like, oh, I can just breathe and have fun and like just
right.
enjoy. You need that artistically just to keep it fresh for
Mhm.
yourself.
For real. Yeah. So like the one series that I'm working on, longer book, is about a teenage serial killer.
Oh, cool.
So it's like comedy, like a horror comedy sort of thing, because I don't know how to not be serious with writing.
Yeah.
But so it's definitely comedy, but it's also like it's a freaking serial killer. So I know I'm going to be drawing gore, which I'm very excited about.
Cool.
That's
Yeah.
not something I'm shy about. So yes. And then I know I'm going to have to like watch a lot of serial killer documentaries, which again, not a problem, but like I feel like that's a lot of like downers, I guess, or some people
Yeah.
would consider that downers, that like I kind of need to balance it with something. So having like, two animal dudes doing hijinks is, I guess, the best balance for that. So that's hopefully what I'm looking. Those are like my two main projects for this year. And I'm ready to get started like ASAP. So.
And so like doing a lot of your work digitally,
Mm.
do you like to experiment with like different sizes of comics as well? Like having that freedom of not having to worry about paper types and
Yeah.
everything?
Yeah. It's so easy to do that. So I obviously worked like with Square a lot in the beginning for social media purposes,
Makes
and
sense.
just the four squares, easy grid. But it's also really fun to sort of see what you can do with that space too, and like with the standard comic size, like having that digitally, you can't really see how big it is physically because you can zoom in, zoom out, all that. So it's like a lot of the times I'll have to look at it and be like, is this text too small? So it can be a little frustrating, I think, working with the different comic sizes, just because my brain personally, I have a 12-inch screen. My iPad's 12 inches. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I can, if I full screen this, it's readable, but the page size is 10 inches. So it's like hard to kind of
Gauge that
visualize,
like
like when I'm lettering. Yeah, especially with lettering, because so I've had issues where I've done something and like on Instagram, it's fine because you can zoom if you can't read, but when I print it, like the text is like this big
ooh, yeah.
and like you can't read it very well. And I'm like, that kind of sucks. So I think it gives you more freedom with the space where you can like experiment with different panels and erase and undo and not have like waste of paper. It's
Mhm.
like hard to sort of like, how do I know that this is a big enough panel space for the speech bubble and the thing that I'm going on? Because
Oh,
on screen it could be like 6 inches, but in person's like me, tiny. So
wild.
that's been my sort of struggle with doing the more traditional like comic page stuff.
What programmers are you using too on your iPad?
Oh, I use Procreate, just
Oh,
the
cool.
basic,
Sweet.
yeah,
That's
the
super rad. It's
model of everything. And I have like some different like I think I stole it from Photoshop actually, like one of their ink brushes.
oh
They're
nice.
like dry ink brushes. It just works so much better. So I just pulled it from Photoshop and put it into Procreate.
Was that like a challenge too, like figuring out your tools as you went digitally as well?
Oh my god, yeah, it's so overwhelming. Like it's like for coloring, I go back and forth between like, do I want it to look watercolory? Do I want it to look ink, like
Mm,
blotchy inking, or do I want it to be cell shaded, like perfect clean coloring? It's so overwhelming the amount of brushes and pencils and
yeah.
inks, and you can just download anything from anywhere. And like halftone brushes, it took me a while to find a good one for
Hmm.
like that effect. So I just, shout out to Halftone Hospital for that one.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they're a very good resource for that stuff.
Oh, definitely check
Makes
that
it a
out.
little less overwhelming, thankfully. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Oh my god, yeah, they have like really great halftone brushes. I like use them for everything.
I might check that out too. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I have with
sure.
like going digital is I mean, I've been able to spit out quick art pieces and they end up coming out like pretty experimental because you're just figuring stuff out. But like I get so
Yeah.
overwhelmed with like the supplies you have on there. And at least like here, like well, they're on the floor right now because my cats, but like I have like, 6 pens to choose from that I'm like, oh, I'm gonna use
Right.
3 of these for this project and I'm just gonna use that and that's it.
Exactly. And it's the sizing too. Like, are these lines too thick? Because
Yeah.
you'll have like, the 0.5 pens that are perfect, but I don't know how to translate that into digital.
Hmm.
Sort of like, do I do it like the tiniest size, but that looks too tiny? So I kind of like having that like, like 135 size pen tip.
Hmm.
Or like, because I break every nib that I have ever touched. So I just go straight up to just like ink pens now, and like brush pens, but you can choose this, you can like physically see the size. So I think I like that a little better. And I guess I'm moving a little bit more towards like the analog traditional way of doing things. The more I get into this, because also I love looking at people's originals too. Like
Yeah.
being able to see that is freaking awesome.
I think that's the funnest thing about like just training your hand and seeing like how traditional work comes out. And when I was doing a bunch of digital stuff and I went back to tradition, oh, I'm sorry, Booby. Sorry, my cat just freaked out. Passed out on my lap and I just shifted.
Oh no.
But like going back and forth, you're just like, you kind of try to like resize something or
Oh
something
my
is
god,
slightly
yeah.
off and you're like, I just wish I could just drag this over and it would fix it. But now I got to erase it and redraw it and hope it comes out just as
Like
good.
wanting to transform an arm
Yes.
so it's the right size, or undoing. Like I'll always like double tap my sketchbook and
Yep.
be like, wait, no,
Real.
that's not what you do. Yeah.
Amazing. Dude,
That's
Maddie,
so
it's already been an hour. I'm so hyped. This was a great conversation.
really. Wow.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
thank you so
Very enjoyed
much.
talking to you, man.
I'm
Yeah.
super hyped that, you're available to talk and we get to see each other at IC3 probably again because
Yeah,
I
for
feel
sure.
like pretty sure we met the
I'm
first
sure.
year.
And the more you talk about your anthology, I'm like, I feel like I already follow these accounts and I feel like I've seen this before.
Yeah, I feel like
Probably.
maybe I swung something by. Maybe we did a trade or something last year. I don't
Might have
remember.
been. Might have
Yeah,
been. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got to dig.
Yeah.
If I
I'll
dig through
see you
my
again this year.
zines, I'm sure I'll find something of yours and be like, "Was this you?" And I'm pretty sure we'll find out. But yeah, but either way,
Yep. Yeah,
we're gonna find out this year
for
for
sure.
sure.
Yeah. This year's gonna be nice. I'm glad. I can go in knowing a lot more people. So
Yeah, honestly, this is going to be a busy one day. I can't wait till they expand it. Their hopes are to expand it to 2 days, which will be really exciting.
that would be awesome.
Yeah, and that'll give us all some breathing room too. Sometimes I think we're going to be so hyped in that one day. We're going to be exhausted for like 3 days after, as if we did a weekend con in general. Do you want to give any shout outs or any quick announcements before we sign off on this?
Yeah, I mean, well, shout out to everyone in Zomic Book. Brian Judge, the man in charge, our cult leader. Zomic Book issue 3 is going to be at IC3. Got that alliteration going. Printed by Comix Wellspring. And yeah, just shout out to everyone doing it, who's getting published and who's doing it themselves. Like, keep going, don't stop. Oh yeah.
Love it. Awesome
Need
words
more
to
things to
end
read.
on.
Let's go.
Yes, awesome. Dude, Maddie, this has been awesome. I'm so glad we got to officially meet and know each
For
other
sure,
now.
man, yeah.
And I can't wait to see your work and I can't see what the work you're producing this year as well. We'll definitely, swap some books and some prints and everything and, check each other's stuff out. And I mean, to all of our audience, don't forget, check out all of our episodes we've been doing. So many spotlights, inspired ink episodes, spilled ink episodes. It's all on the road to IC3. So you're going to be discovering so many more creators over the next, leading into March 15th. So I'm so hyped for this next couple months of drawing and talking to all these people. And get your tickets now. They're like $8. There's like no reason not to go if you're in that region. It's going to be a fun time. Panels, all sorts of stuff. Apollo City is going to have half our crew there. CWS is going to be there. We're going to be selling our blue line paper. The tables are going to be getting samples of this blue line paper, so you guys could all check it out as well. And
that's gonna be awesome.
Super rad. And I think that's it. So as always, thanks for hanging. Stay creative and stay inspired.
For sure, man.